Hello, and welcome back to another video on this channel. If you're new here, hey, hi. My name is Lillian, and I like to talk about books. Did I recently make several videos talking about books that I wanted to get to before the end of the year, books that I'm hoping to read in the next several weeks? Yes. Did I also just go to the library and pick up a bunch more books that I might want to read? Yes. In my defense, the majority of these books are poetry collections, and they are very short. But in reality, that really isn't a defense. But I wanted to share a little library book haul with you today and talk about some of the books that really caught my eye when I was there and I couldn't resist bringing home with me. So let's get into it. First up, we have Sad Girl Litfic Booktube's darling, and that is Ottessa Moshfegh. This is a novella by her. This is Maglue. I've really wanted to read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by her for several years now. My library didn't have it on hand when I was there, so I still wanted to try something from her, and I thought this novella sounded like it would be perfect. This book is set in Salem, Massachusetts. This book is set in Salem, Massachusetts in 1851 and follows a man who got very drunk one night and supposedly may or may not have killed his best friend. A sentence on the back of this book describes it as Ottessa Moshfegh gives us nasty, heartless blackguard of a knife-sharp voyage through the fogs of recollection. If you are an Ottessa Moshfegh stan, let me know if you have read this, if you enjoyed it, what were your thoughts? Next we have what I think might be the cutest sized little book that I've ever come across in my life, and that is Convenience Store Woman by Sakaya Murata. This is so tiny and it's so cute. I've been wanting to read this for I think 2 years now. I have it saved to check out on Hoopla, but I saw it at my library location and thought I could probably get through this faster in the physical form than listening to it on audiobook, and it's so cute. I know that this book has been floating around the internet for a few years now, but it follows a woman who works at a convenience store in Japan, and she has worked there for many years. She's very happy in her job, but the people in her life keep telling her that she should aspire for more, that she should not have stagnated this much in life. I've heard that this is an interesting look at contemporary work culture as well as the societal pressure to fit in, to feel normal, to be perceived as normal. Next is one that I have had saved on bookshop.org for a little bit, but I saw it at my library and so I scooped it up. And that is, this book is not about Benedict Cumberbatch. The Joy of Loving Something, Anything, Like Your Life Depends on It by Tabitha Caravan. For the folks out there who have ever been on Tumblr for any period of time, but specifically between about 2011 and 2015, you will know. Benedict Cumberbatch, BBC Sherlock series, fandom, these were all things that I was very much caught up in during that time in my life. And so I saw the cover of this book and I was very much pulled in, intrigued. I'm not sure if this is an essay collection or a memoir, but it is a piece of creative nonfiction. And the back says, what Caravan slowly realized was that her preoccupation was not about Benedict Cumberbatch at all, as dashing as he might be. It was about finally feeling passionate about something, anything, again, at a point in her life when she had lost touch with her own sense of self. In This Is Not a Book About Benedict Cumberbatch, Caravan asks, what happens if we simply decide to follow our interests like we used to, unabashedly, audaciously, shamelessly? After all, Caravan discovers there's true untapped power in finding your thing and loving it like your life depends on it. I'm definitely interested in reading and having discussions about internet culture and fandom, and this book is something within that vein that I hope and I think we will likely see more of in the future, as we're folks who were raised on the internet are reaching adulthood and starting to write about some of their experiences. I think there are so many things to talk about when it comes to fandom. There are so many ins and outs, highs and lows, goods and bads. But at the end of the day, something that I think this book is going to try and get at, and something that I've been thinking about myself, of reflecting on that time in my life when I was deeply invested in these fictional characters, shows, books, and sharing in collective excitement with other people that were enjoying it as much or more than I was. There was definitely a sense of camaraderie and, in some ways, intimacy that I don't think I've experienced since when it came to Tumblr fandoms of the 2010s. But I am interested to see what this book ends up discussing in the end, what her take will be. and I will definitely be doing some of my own ruminations, I imagine. Next is a massive stack of poetry books. I ended up reading the poetry section of my local library and took home a good number of them. I won't stay too long on most of these just because they are new to me poets and I'm looking forward to experience their collections. The one poet in this stack that I have read before and adore is Mary Oliver, and I picked up 4 of her collections that I have not read yet, starting with Blue Horses, 1,000 Mornings, Swan and Other Prose Poems, and Dog Songs. Next is one that I have had on my TBR for quite a while, and that is Cannibal by Sophia Sinclair. I'm sorry, I lied. There is another poet on this list that I have read before, and that is Sharon Olds. I read her collection Odes a few years ago and enjoyed it, and this is Arias. Another one that I've had on my TBR list for years now, and that is Post-Traumatic Hood Disorder by Daniel Thomas Martinez. Next we have Best American Poetry of 2018 anthology. This is something that I like to pick up, this series of anthologies, when I want to discover new poets. And lastly, we have an oldie and apparently a goodie, one that I have never encountered before, and that is Beowulf. This is a new translation by Maria Devana Hadley, and not gonna lie, the cover is kind of what intrigued me. This was never something that I had to read in school, and I saw it and I figured, why not? Let's give it a try. It's very short. And then also I read the description on the back, and I will share a bit of that with you. Nearly 20 years since the last major translation of Beowulf, here is a radical new verse translation of the epic poem, which brings to light elements that have never been rendered into modern English. Maria Devana Headley's version transforms the story we know of monsters versus heroes into a tale in which those two categories intertwine, in which justice is rarely served, and in which dragons live among us. While researching her translation of Beowulf, Headley unearthed significant shifts in the understanding of the poem over the centuries, discovering lost nuances and long-ignored dynamics. The result is that the familiar elements of the epic poem are seen with a fresh eye towards gender, genre, and history. Beowulf has always been a tale of entitlement and encroachment, powerful men seeking to become more powerful, and one woman seeking justice for her child, but this telling brings new context to an old story. I'm always here for a modern female translator tackling an older piece of literature, a classic, and seeing what the male translators who have gone before have either missed or purposefully changed. Next is a book that I picked up for reference for some of my current creative projects, and that is Creative Nonfiction, Researching and Crafting Stories for Real Life by Philip Gerard. I did a little glance through of this when I was in the library, and it's what it says on the tin, and I'm hoping that this will be useful to me. And then the last book on this list is To Capture What We Cannot Keep by Beatrice Colin. This is, I believe, a historical fiction romance. It's set in the 1880s in Paris, and it sounds like it's a romance between the architect of the Eiffel Tower and an impoverished widow. It sounds like they are navigating different levels of class and social acceptance, but Cold Weather tends to have me leaning towards more historical fiction, and it's also been a little bit since I read some romance, so hoping this will fit the bill for both of those. There are actually 5 more books that I picked up from the library on top of the ones that I just shared with you, and I talked about those in my recent reading vlog. They were all books that were on display for Indigenous Heritage Month. My last reading vlog was documenting my time reading for the Skoda and Readathon, which features Indigenous authors in the month of November. So I thought it was fitting that I included those books in there. But if you would like to see the rest of the books that I picked up from the library, you can go ahead and watch that video as well. If you've read any of the books that I just mentioned, let me know what you thought of them in the comments below. Did you have to read Beowulf for school? If so, what did you think of it? I remember in high school several friends had to read Beowulf, but they were in a different English class, and I was not subject to it. But I do remember there being a lot of moans and groans about reading Beowulf. That being said, I'm interested to see the modern translators' take on this older work, and also myself coming to this classic from a perspective of someone who really enjoys poetry, but also who has a growing interest in Norse mythology, which I think I've heard that Beowulf touches on a little bit, if I'm remembering correctly. All right, my friends, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. If you made it this far and you enjoyed it, you can give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it, it helps. If you're new here and you're interested to see what my thoughts are on these books that I just mentioned, feel free to click the subscribe button. I would love to have you. But with that, I think I'm gonna wrap this video up, and I will see you in my next one.